Imagine this. You become one of the youngest heads of state anywhere in the world, but not through an election, through a military coup. That's the reality for Ibrahim Traoré, leading Burkina Faso through some incredibly tough times. Today we're doing a deep dive into his pretty unexpected rise and his very impactful rule so far. We got a whole stack of sources here for you, biographical bits, policy papers, the lot.
Yeah, and our mission really is to pull out the key insights from all this material. We want to give you a clear, comprehensive, and honestly engaging picture of Traoré, his background, those big policy changes he's made, and the really complex challenges his government is dealing with. The aim is for you to walk away feeling like you've got a solid grasp of who this pivotal figure is and, the impact he's having.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's start at the beginning, Ibrahim Traoré's early life. Born March 14th, 1988, place called Kera in Burkina Faso. His early life, well, it doesn't exactly scream future military leader. Went to school in Kera, then Bobo Dioulasso. People described him as quiet but talented.
And what's fascinating here, really striking, is his academic path. Totally non-military at first. He enrolled in 2006 at Ouagadougou University, studied geology, of all things. Geology, and graduated with honors in 2009. It's not the usual route for someone who ends up leading a coup, is it? Suggests maybe a more, analytical mind, perhaps, even before the military.
That is a key detail. Okay, and then the surprise turn happens. Right after getting that geology degree, bang, 2009, he joins the Burkina Faso Army, goes through officer training at the Georges Denamono Military Academy, quite the pivot, and his military career. It seems to move pretty quickly. He got specialized anti-aircraft training in Morocco. That suggests they saw potential early on. By 2018, he's deployed in Mali with the UN mission, MINUSMA, fighting rebel groups.
Right, and sources say he was actually praised for courage during that deployment.
Yeah, and promotions followed. Lieutenant in 2014, then captain in 2020.
But here's something vital. As early as 2019, while he's still serving, Traoré starts speaking out. He's raising concerns, serious ones, about the lack of proper military equipment, especially up north where things were heating up. And he was openly criticizing corruption in the system. This wasn't just, barracks grumbling. This was an officer challenging things publicly. It definitely laid the groundwork for what came next, shows the frustration building up.
Yeah, that early dissent really does set the stage. Okay, so now we get to the really dramatic part. September 30th, 2022. Traoré, leading this group of, disgruntled army officers, they stage a coup. They remove the president at the time.
A swift move.
Very. Yeah. And then just a few weeks later, October 21st, 2022, he's sworn in, transitional president. And just like that, he becomes Burkina Faso's youngest ever leader.
And at his swearing in, he made this really direct statement, kind of set the tone. He said, and I'm quoting here, "We are facing an unprecedented security and humanitarian crisis."
No mincing words.
Not at all. Straight away framing his leadership around the crisis, signaling, action stations, not politics as usual.
And action definitely followed. Quickly. Big policy shifts almost immediately. Foreign relations, for one, he ended the long-standing defense agreement with France.
Huge move. More than just symbolic. That was a real pivot, signaling a break from the past, from the former colonial power.
Definitely.
And then he moved fast to build new relationships, increased cooperation with Russia significantly, strengthened ties with Niger and Mali next door.
Right, the neighbors.
And he took a leading role in forming this new group, the Alliance of Sahel States, the AES. Now, interestingly, one source mentions this alliance was established in Melbourne.
Melbourne, Australia. That's unusual.
It is. Raises questions maybe about where they held talks, or perhaps it's just an odd detail in the source material. But the alliance itself, that's key. And then domestically on the security front, his government massively increased the number of VDPs, the Fatherland Defense Volunteers, civilian auxiliaries, and announced a new Special Rapid Intervention Brigade, clearly taking a more aggressive internal security posture.
So beyond security and foreign ties, he's also pushed this very distinctive economic strategy. Focus on nationalization, self-reliance. A core policy seems to be taking back control of the country's mines, gold, other minerals, bringing them under a new state-run body, SOPIMIP.
Yeah, that's a massive step, reclaiming national resources, basically. And you see concrete results from this push, like opening Burkina Faso's first ever indigenous gold refinery in November 2023.
There's one.
First local one, yeah. Capable of processing something like 400 kilos of gold a day. That's significant capacity for them. And then to tighten control further, they suspended licenses for small-scale gold exports in February 2024.
Keeping more of it in-house, essentially.
Exactly, funneling it through state channels.
And it's not just minerals, right? There's been a big push on agriculture, too. Talking about distributing hundreds of tractors, tillers, water pumps to farmers. Serious investment.
Yeah, and apparently it's starting to show results. Improving food security. The sources we have point to tomato production going up, maybe 14%, from around 315,000 tons to 360,000.
Okay.
And millet, a key staple, up about 20%, from roughly 900,000 tons to 1.1 million tons between 2022 and 2024.
Those are noticeable increases. And we're seeing other big economic changes too, right? Fiscal independence seems to be a theme. The country's GDP, for example, looks like it's grown from about $18.8 billion to $22.1 billion in the last couple of years.
That growth figure is there, yes. But perhaps the real indicator of this self-reliance drive is the government rejecting new loans. They turned down new deals with the IMF and the World Bank.
Really?
Yeah. And they've apparently managed to repay internal debt as well. Now, that's not just, balancing the books. It's a powerful statement about breaking free from traditional financial ties. Risky maybe, but bold.
Definitely bold.
And then there's this interesting salary move, cutting pay for ministers and parliament members by 30%, but at the same time, increasing salaries for general government workers by 50%.
Wow, that sends a message.
A very clear one about where the priorities lie, or at least where they want them to appear to lie.
He's also looking at social stuff, infrastructure. There was a big housing project launched, July 2024, building 1,000 social housing units, specifically for families displaced by the conflict, starting construction in August, a bit outside the capital.
Addressing that internal displacement issue.
Yeah, and the plan, by the end of 2024, is apparently to restructure the whole national budget, shifting funds directly towards housing, clean water, food security, basic needs.
Okay, but we have to talk about the other side of the coin, too. No leader operates without challenges, and Traoré faces massive ones.
Absolutely. The security crisis, for starters, it's still incredibly severe. Sources suggest less than half the country, maybe under 50%, is actually under government control.
Yeah, and the violence stats are, frankly, alarming. They really show the scale of it. Between 2022 and 2024, a huge spike in incidents. Over 4,000 separate events. And the death toll from terrorist activities in that period, over 6,000 people.
6,000. That's staggering.
It is. And that constant instability, it just undermines everything else they're trying to do. It's a massive threat to his government's legitimacy, its effectiveness.
And it's not just the violence levels. There are serious allegations too, right?
Yeah.
Human rights concerns, press freedom issues. We're seeing reports of repression against opposition figures, journalists, even judges. Ordinary citizens, too.
Right. And that controversial mandatory military recruitment policy adds to the concerns.
Plus, there was that foiled coup attempt against him in September 2023. Shows things are maybe not totally stable internally.
Definitely hints at vulnerability. And then you have accusations about misuse of mineral money, which is sensitive given the nationalization push.
So it creates this real split in how he's seen.
Exactly, a real duality. He's clearly popular with some, especially younger people. They like the Pan-African talk, the alliance with Russia, kicking out the French influence.
Standing up for sovereignty.
Precisely. But at the same time, he gets heavy criticism for the security situation getting worse on his watch and for what many sees as democratic backsliding. So you have this support based on, wanting independence, but it's bumping up against very real fears about safety and basic freedoms.
So tying this all together, what does it tell us about his bigger vision, his foreign policy, that Pan-African identity? The connection to Thomas Sankara seems strong. People often make that link.
They do, and you can see it on the policies. That emphasis on national independence, controlling local resources, pushing back against French influence, it echoes Sankara's ideals.
It really does.
And this South Sahel experience, as some call it, removing the French military, coordinating closely with Russia, leading this new AES alliance.
It's a conscious reshaping of the region's geopolitics.
Absolutely. A deliberate attempt to shift the power dynamics away from the old post-colonial setup.
Okay, so where does that leave him now? What's the current status, the path forward? He's still interim president since October 2022 and heads up the military movement, the PMSR.
And it's worth remembering his age. He'll only be 37 by July 2025. Still incredibly young for a head of state.
One of the youngest in the world.
It gives a whole different dynamic, doesn't it? Representing a new generation.
And elections. What's the word on those?
Well, the official line seems to be that they depend on major changes, big security improvements.
So likely to late.
Reports, like one from France 24 back in June, suggest delays are quite possible, yeah. The security situation makes holding nationwide polls incredibly difficult.
So he's still juggling these intense crises, political and security.
Absolutely. But his influence, driven by these policies of self-reliance, the Pan-African vision, and that youth support, it seems to be holding, even spreading, perhaps.
All right, so let's try and sum up. Ibrahim Traoré. We've got this geology graduate turned army captain, turned coup leader, turned president. He's pushed these really bold policies, taking back mines, boosting farming, forging a very different foreign policy path, breaking from France, leaning towards Russia and Sahel neighbors.
But yeah, the complexities are huge. While he's chasing that economic autonomy, that vision of independence, his rule is absolutely marked by this brutal security crisis. Violence is up significantly, and there are those persistent criticisms about human rights, about democratic norms being pushed aside. It's a story of ambition hitting very hard realities.
So a final thought for you, our listeners, to chew on. Given these massive challenges Traoré faces, trying to secure the country while also aiming for economic independence, and this big geopolitical shift, what lessons can we actually draw from his approach? What does it tell us about governing states that are deep in crisis? And maybe more broadly, what does the rise of young, defiant leaders like him in Africa's mean for the future, for international relations, for self-determination on the continent? Something to think about.